Welcome to the North Witch Podcast with your hosts Azariel Flame and Sandra Von Holland. In this podcast, we explore all the things that can help us to be better and improve our lives in body, mind, and spirit. Looking at everything from witchcraft, sorcery, woo-woo, spirituality, biohacking, the mundane, and everything in between. We occasionally have on guests from various backgrounds, practices, and philosophies. We welcome everyone from all walks of life, from the left-hand path to the right-hand path, from the medical to the holistic, from the woo-woo to the scientific, and everything in between. We have conversations and discussions about our experiences over the years, what works for us, what hasn't worked, and explore new theories and science, trying them out, seeing what works, and debunking what doesn't. Thank you for joining us on this wicked adventure along the crooked path as we adventure into the mysterious and wonderful world and welcome what truly works for us to become better witches, sorcerers, magicians, and our best selves so that we can live our best lives. May these conversations help you to ignite the light within. The views expressed by our guests on this podcast do not necessarily reflect the views of us here at Northwich Magic Co. All of the information shared on this podcast is anecdotal and shared for entertainment purposes only, and does not constitute medical or financial advice. Always consult a doctor, physician, or professional in their field before trying any of the things that may be discussed on this channel. Magic and holistic healing should work alongside allopathic care when necessary. Hi, everybody, and welcome back to another exciting episode of the North Witch Podcast. On today's episode, we have William Hegeman, also known as Archonstone amongst the magical circles, and he has written a wonderful no-woo book called Magic, Mind, Emotion, and Body, The Praxis, Magic, No-Woo, The How and Why book. And we were lucky enough to get some copies to read, and there is a whole bunch of really, really cool and useful tips, tricks, and techniques in it. And we definitely suggest checking it out. So how's it going today, William?
I love that you picked up techniques because I always hear you say tricks and tips. Now you add techniques.
Yeah. See,
I've infected the brain already.
You have.
For sure.
Oh, stop shaking the building, Bill. So, yeah, I'm doing good. Life's moving on, retired, got able to write the book. It's a lot of the things that help keep me sane, keep me going, keep me on the path, and stuff I think that needed to be shared to people. I've seen a lot of things in the different occult or spiritual communities, and I wanted to get the basics out, and the idea is how to get a magical mind, and the idea that not one magical system, not one step is something that you can freeze at. It's a lifelong process. Magic, spiritual development, the evolution of your soul. So I can encourage you to try to work for apotheosis to become a god. Be a good one.
Perfect. Yeah, it was a really interesting read, and I love that you pulled modern science into it, and like how they're figuring out that the Chinese actually kind of knew what the hell they were talking about for thousands of years, and you put in the nice descriptions of why the meditations work, how it works on a muscular level, a skeletal level, nerve level, everything. It really closes a lot of the the woo and science gap on a lot of the techniques, which I found really interesting and cool. I'm a bit of a science nerd myself, so it was cool to see some, PubMed documents and stuff listed in there as references.
Yeah, I just got a book, Gong, Grand Circulation, Path to Enlightenment by Dr. Yang, and he's still using the concepts of bioelectrical function, which you go back 20 years ago, and yeah, that's or 30 years ago, and for a lack of better explanation, that's what it is. But when you realize fascia is through your whole body, and you're not moving electrons, you're moving protons, and the physics of moving mass and charge delves into the quantum level area of existence. So not only can it work EMF, it can work at a quantum level. So you can actually manage, it can explain how magic can work through space and time. So it's, you know, when you think about everything that you do magically, you know, even the mind and the emotion and the type of work that you exert into your body, you know, you set up a metabolism, your arms, your movement, the sounds, the chants, the emotional charge with each of the words and whatever, drumming, dancing, mudras, you name it, they'll all affect the fascia, which is everywhere. So once people realize that that there's a good scientific basis for all types of magic, and you practice getting your energy work and being aware of it, you can insert yourself in any magical practice that you choose, and hopefully you have the wherewithal to be aware of how you want to insert yourself, whether or not this tradition works or this tradition works, whether you have an honest relationship with the beings that you work with. Some aren't honest. Some, you know, they'll tell you truths, but they'll prevaricate. So it's a matter of, as I put it, is having an absolute honest relationship with everything, even if it is, yeah, you're not good for me, I'll stay away. So you know, do both.
I think that's important, right? That's so huge. Nah, you're not for me. I can't. I don't want to play there.
Yeah, I put out to the spirits, you know, even the gods that step into my life, says, what's going on? You know, it's like, you know, it's one site, you want me to start a fight with somebody. He says, are you going to stay your hand from me? No, that's a bad deal. You know, I don't think so. So that's not happening. But have them step in while I'm doing magic, and they just want to ride the wave of it, and then piss them off because I find information where I have to stop the magic because it was unwarranted. Because I do not believe in entangling myself and doing stuff that's not needed. Yeah, and then there were cosmic, you know, meteorological events to happen when I pulled the plug on that. So I told them it's all on you. Yeah, I didn't ask you to join the party.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's something that, you know, a lot of practitioners, especially nowadays, you know, with the new circles of occult groups on Facebook and stuff like that, people really will just do whatever the spirits ask of them. And it's like, you know, you can say no. Like, this is, you know, if it's a spirit, insert people, and, you know, there's probably a good and bad way to deal with them, and they're kind of probably the same. You know, if you're walking downtown in a big city and somebody's like, hey, I need you to sling some meth for me and beat that guy up, you're probably going to say no. So why are people agreeing to, you know, go and steal stuff for their deity or whatever, right?
Yeah, I know. There's so much bad information out there. I mean, a lot of good traditions, a lot of, you know, good people, you know, well-meaning, well-intended, and then there's those who just, you know, I got to push the envelope because it's me. I'm like, what part of mirroring society that you didn't want to be part of? Yeah. At some point, some of that has to be, you know, personal responsibility. It's because no matter what they tell you do, you end up holding the short end of the stick, and you better make sure that something's worthier on that short end of the stick.
Yeah, for sure. So I like that that you bring 50 years of study to all of this. So do you want to give us a quick overview of 50 years of this, and that how you came to this book? And you know that,
Well,
like, there's
yeah, my first experience was, I was 2. I'm 63.
Ooh.
So I had 2 golden orbs spinning. Okay, they were scintillating and spinning around it. The only place, there's 3 references: a Hindu yogi, the founder of Falun Gong, and Aleister Crowley, and they all have different interpretations of it. My teacher has them. I have them. He had a teacher, a Native American teacher, that explained to him what it was, more so. Um, they were my past lives. If you're reading people's timelines, you usually read in front of them. And if you're reading their ancestors, you can usually read a timeline coming off of shoulders. Usually the left shoulder here, maternal, paternal this side. But these are different, and they were discs, and they're gold. There's a technique on how to hide your timeline from all beings. I would go to a reader, they can't read me. They would read reflections from the environment and whatever. They couldn't read me. The reason was, well, especially if they're using divine sources, instead of, even fortune telling, there's a difference. They're not reading me. And understanding that, it's like, well, I had to delve, I figured that I got a handle on that when I was 50. So that's a big story arc in itself. At 7, my uncle, my father, and grandfather died within 4 or 5 months. And I was moving into my grandfather's bedroom. I went down to get some breakfast, like 2 weeks after he passed. I hear him shuffling out of the room and coming downstairs, and I see him, and the world skews 45 degrees out of the way, and I'm like, I'm 7 years old. I'm like, what's going on? He gets up to the 3rd step and he says, "So long, Sonny," and then he steps off and evaporates, and then these little dust motes that were sparkly got in a pile, and they evaporated too. Of course, telling people about that, because, oh, kid's traumatized. You had 3 deaths in the family. Talk to the school counselors, not a good idea. Talk to my parents, not a good idea. I'm singing to crows, and this witch neighbor, who I figured out she was a witch years later. You don't want to talk in tongues yet. You wait until you're older. I'm like, what's up with that? And one day I was at her house and I saw a peacock feather on a wall. Says, "That's a peacock feather." And my mother's like, "Shush, you don't ask about such things." I'm like, "It's a peacock feather." Find out that was an old thing. Says, "Hey, if you know, that's a witch symbol." But that's going back Victorian days. So anyway, life's insane. I'm having premonitions, whatever. I'm 13. I get my hands on Evan Wentz's book, Tibetan Yoga, Secret Doctrines. I learned meditation, basic energy work, concept of how to develop your body for transmigration, a system they call Fo Wa, and a bunch of other things. And I'm escaping my mother because my home life is insane. And I don't want to waste time talking about that. And I go to a Baptist church, and they're not having any of that. So I spend over 40 days with a progressive fast, asking God for the wisdom of Solomon. Now in the Bible, Yahweh says, "I'm doing this once, never again." But I called Arnell, who's a totally different God. And I saw a manifestation up in the cloud, slapped myself, made sure I wasn't hallucinating, saw it, and says, "Yeah, I'm going to answer your prayer, but I'm going to let you go in 32 years. And I'm going to teach you what sin means." And it's 32 years of trials and tribulations. I'm not given any information. It's a sink or swim thing. So I had to learn everything on my own. And growing up, even when I got out of the military, in the early 80s in upstate New York, there was the ultra feminist Wiccan movement. I don't fit, I ended up going to a thing with my wife with Starhawk, only male there, and the women go to my wife, says, "What's he doing here?" So I tried to. There was a warden of the Sangreal Sodality, Marcia Pickens. She's wrote some good books. She did William Gray's Sangreal Sodality there, and she was also a good kung fu teacher. But she says, "I can't take you. I can't initiate you. You've had far too many experiences that are initiatory on their own, and they don't fit our initiatory program. They're not relatable because the approach and the experiences are too different." And eventually says, "Why don't you teach yourself?" So yeah, yeah, it's semi-unbelievable events, some of them, dealing with people who are not behaving well and having to protect offices and people like that, So, and many years trying to be normal and have a income and a family, and successful, 4 kids, healthy, sane, and how to stay sane with an insane work life. So that's what a lot of those techniques for, is how to do meditation when you don't have time to think about it, when you get a busy mind and there's a reason for it. So I thought it was time to get that information out there so people can evolve on their own, and when they can and how they can. Because sometimes you don't have the opportunity of having a community of magicians who are in the same wavelength. Like the past 5 or 6 years, I joined the OTO, and the people are pretty cool there. But it's more of like a lodge community. I'd enjoy the AA because my magical practices are completely different. Like Crowley says, "Don't follow me. Cut your own way through the forest." That's what I'm doing. At some point I'll write a book on my ceremonial magic method if I can get it working. Right now, I use it very mystically and intuitively, but I follow back and say, "Yeah, that fits. That fits. That's the sound. Those are the places, and that's how I'm using the language." So I'll get that written one of these days.
Awesome. We look forward to that.
I'll look forward to getting it done. I'm getting too many distractions.
That's part of the journey, right?
Yeah, well, I'll have a spirit board layout. I will have a new divination method layout. The symbol on my book is a mnemonic for the sounds. Every sound has it's more focused on community and how you function in reality, more so than planets and elements and nature is involved, but the focus is creating spirits, and I'm going to be using my past lives because I'm undoing those orbs, and I'm putting them out into an egregor and having them serve as servitors, so that I'm not involving any egregor of deities, their woo, their whatever, how they want to get me sucked into that thing and build magical attachments. Every bit of magic you do, there is a consequence and a certain amount of attachment that's involved. And people make those choices, and I want people to be able to choose, not fall into it. I was lucky. For all the hell I've been through for 32 years, I was released. It also gives me a very unique perspective on relationship with divine beings. When I find out who El was and how he's usurped Yahweh's religion, and and he's got like 3,500 years of backstory that he's all too eager to allow gods to kill themselves off, and and even if they incarnate as people, let them kill each other. And it's like, yeah, that's a program I'm not going to join. Oh, I've hidden from it for 5,000 years, so I'm going to stay that way. That's too much woo, but that's
Too much woo.
my personal take on it.
Nice.
For sure. So I really like that you were able to kind of distill down everything into kind of a easy to use, relatable way for most of your techniques. There's not a lot of, like if you look at some of the OTO rituals or AA rituals or whatever, if you do not have the vocabulary to know what the hell is going on and you can't figure out the gematria behind it and whatever else, like, good luck understanding it. So it's really nice to see, kind of, they could be considered more complex concepts in some magical circles, and how they're distilled down to, this is really the bare bones of it. This is what you need to know, and this is how to make it work and remove all of the bullshit, so to speak, right?
Exactly.
I like the remove the bullshit part and make it understandable.
Not everybody has 2 doctorate degrees in English literature and world literature around the Victorian times, and understand the level of poetry that Alistair put to it, which is, it was great for weeding out people who, it made a very small inclusionary circle, but it's not helpful in the long run. But given Alistair's background, that was the only way that his mind could actually manage it. So, but you have to have that perspective, and trying to explain that to people, it's a whole nother deal. It's like, that balancing of up and down, left and right, and everything. Believe me, that's what the energetic stuff that I try to teach, you're going to have to learn how to do. But using a symbol set that is slowly being antiquated. And when you look at Hebrew and the conceptualization of it, when you look at the tree of life, it's a framework that creates dissonance. I could make a comparison between like Hindu Sanskrit, which deals with emotional energy with conceptual framework in relationship to your body. Okay, so you're adding concepts into some sounds, and even chakras are prescriptive by school. It just happens that the major chakra system that we all know of here in the West is even being adopted in India, and it's just one school. And they're making it descriptive. It's not. It's prescriptive. But when you look at some of the sounds, there's some similarities to Futhark, which has an external use of energy flowing through the body. But when you get into Kabbalah, you're taking a whole word with a whole conceptual thing, and it's not a visual alignment with the body. And depending on how your body feels, and there's feelings, emotional constructs for every single word and letter, you're creating this really large template. You're creating a spiritual computer that ties you into an egregor. I figured that out in my 20s, and I'm like, I'm being tied into it. I mean, in my 20s, I figured I was being tied into it. My professional psychic things, instead of hitting people directly with my energy or spirit to elicit responses from people so that I could be psychic with them, I was ending up pinging parts of people that they don't want to really reveal and they're not ready for. And that terrifies people. So I create a body of light, a simulacrum of the person, and I would ping it, okay? And I get the information only that they want to work with and deal with. That's great. Now you learn that to make fetches, investigate the area, go down reality streams. If you live in a complicated city, it's not one reality plane. There are streams that becomes, part of cultural context, and there are spirits with them. And they overlap in cities like Baltimore, Albany, Knoxville, some I haven't been all the cities, but if you get a feeling for what type of cities they are, when people can walk through 3 of these reality streams, and I'll tell you the most key point: the people that live there, their short-term memories are 2 weeks. They'll fabricate anything else. Here in Atlanta, 6 months. They'll remember the conversation. Most other places in the country, 6 months. There, 2 weeks tops. And when you start meeting spirits that kind of dance between them, there's no relationship in literature about it. But you're following these downs, you end up attaching yourself to the reality that you're working in. And guess what? I could do magic for other people, but I couldn't do a thing for me. Not one lick. I was woven so tight into that tapestry of reality, I had to let it all go. Totally. So I had to reframe my magical practices, rebuild my relationship to how I interact with dream planes and planes of existence. I couldn't use a framework that I had because it was tied into the reality there. I couldn't escape it. It took me a good set of years to undo it all. And then I reframed my magical practice without all the attachments and a direct, honest relationship with myself, and focus that as the personality of how I'm going to address everything else. So it's a story not meant for every magician. So it's but the fact is, it's like, I don't know of anybody who's ripped apart their magical system totally and then re-evolve themselves. So and the way to do it is I had to understand the basics. I studied as much as I can to understand the nitty-gritty breakdown, and I hope the book reflects that. And if anybody uses it, they could immerse themselves into any magical system they want and make sensible choices and be able to extract themselves from it if they have to. And people making pacts to beings that they don't know. I did for 32 years, and I was 14 years old, and I did not have a clue what I was getting into. Of course, the magical literature in the 70s and 80s was not available. The bookstores did not have them. They weren't selling them. I didn't have real good access to Magical Child even there, but a lot of the books were outdated. I got my hands on Franz Barden books. They were good beginner books. They really were, but those are also outdated as well. I'm going, the bunny hole's just starting to pop up all over the place. I'll shut up about.
Which way to go?
Yeah. Which way do they go, George? Which way do they go?
So out of all of these techniques, if somebody was to get started with this and start practicing some of this praxis, what would be, like, obviously you think they're all essential because you put them in the book, but where would you want somebody to start, and for them to get the most, bang for their buck, and to be able to start immediately making personal changes and excelling in their practice and in their life?
The second section, preternatural magic. The meditation technique is mindful, and the idea that you have a 2-year-old here that's been collecting every impression that you've ever had, whether it's yours or not, and learning to own it. You know, the method of hijacking your body so that you can quiet all the metabolism information, so that your brain will be erupting with thoughts and emotions, and you got to say, is it mine or not mine? If it's mine, I got to own it, tag it, bag it, put it in a box. If it's not mine, you're going to have to let it go. You have to ground it out. The first step is centering. Next thing is grounding. You do that. It takes about 3 months, you know, or more, depending on it. And then the next step is going through the energy in your body, and then picking up where the blockages are physically in your body, and they will rattle the cage up here. Okay. So you taught your 2-year-old to be an 8-year-old and whatever, and they're being responsible, cleaning things up, and they say, hey, this is rattling. You got to deal with it. So you got to meditate on that. The next part is when you're doing the Gong method of rotating pills of energy through you, and you're teasing out the same things in your chakras. And now you got a teenager tormenting you. You promised to deal with this shit. So the theory here is it's even like a 12-step program or cognitive therapy. You have to learn to control your emotions and remember with emotions. It's a technique even for lucid dreaming, plane walking, whatever, because emotions mirror your metabolism. That mirrors the energetic context of your spiritual relationship with the world, or whatever state you're in. But you have to emotionally remember your old self. But if you have a calm, quiet self, you're close to your soul. You're the closest spirit shell, I call it a spirit vehicle, that interacts with your soul and your body. This is where, you know, the one 4 square pot belly breath, you can get calm and reside here. You can emotionally remember it, but you don't have to live it. Your new self, you choose your emotion, which underlies what your action is going to be. So it's easier to change an emotion. And for me, I was dealing with a lot of sociopaths and what have you, and I just had like this, get a little bit angry, and then choose how I feel about it, and then I develop a riff, an action plan, things to say. And it took me 2 months to pull off the first change in my personality to do that. And it took me a month and 2 weeks. And it got to the point where I was able to change this every other day. And I call this internal alchemy, because you're doing 2 things. You're training yourself how to evolve, how to embrace separate emotional states and not choose to live them. Because when you live them, they control you. Choosing your emotion, you are now being able to express that magically. Okay. So the other exercises in that section of the book is about how to energetically relate to the world around you. But learning to control who you are and understanding the underlying mechanism on how to evolve your personality by your own will, your own choice, is key. You have to own yourself. Okay. If you're going to relate to deities, they either own you, even with demons, you have to stand your own, or you have to be part of their program. You either have an honest relationship or be part of their program. You have a choice. I choose to have an honest relationship. I would demand that they have an honest relationship with me. I've already been under a thumb for 32 years. I'm not having it again. And but I've also realized learning to expand your ego by getting uncomfortable. Your ego wants you to hang on to an emotional paradigm with all your thoughts and functions, because that's how you best function. It's an addiction. It's called state-dependent behavior. But it happens with normal people and ego and how they hold on to this reality. Well, you hold on to that reality, you're not going to do magic. You got to expand it where you can accept the emotional and energetic reality of things different and shifting and changing. And you have to make your ego flexible and give it the ability and the tools to analyze all your experiences. You may be thinking and functioning with your right brain at any given time, but in the afterthought, you have to remember the feeling of the environment and the situation and hold onto your other critical aspects of personality and ego to be able to write it down, to analyze it, to think about it. And when you do hold both of them together, guess what? You are expanding all your faculties into this expanded sense of consciousness. So you're becoming aware more and more and more. And every time you practice it and everything new that you experience, everything. So that now it starts becoming really difficult to write it down. But your right brain will help you feel it and give you a 3D, correction, 5-dimensional image of it. And when I say 5D is because when you explore overworlds and underworlds, you understand that time has structure. You go in an underworld, things collapse. You make a turn, the road turns into a path, the river turns into a stream, the houses become hovels or they turn to skyscrapers, depending on your attention and your emotional energy change. You go to an overworld and it's like everything's replicated. You know, trees, features, waters, even leaf patterns. You pay attention to that. Next thing you know, you realize that these things are being expressed over space and time at the same time and through time. Your physical body doesn't relate to that. You're going to have to do all these other exercises so that you can remember the emotion and the thing, but you don't have to physically live it because it will screw up your body. It's just, I see too many magicians who like take in energy and let things go around, and by the time they're 40s, 50s, their body's falling apart. Okay, and there's a lot of practices where people do energy exchange with, take energy from people, and they use it. Okay, but it's like all that information's already congealed, gritty. That astral, that chi, has information in it. It's crystallized, going through your body. It interrupts and tries to re-inform your body. And what messes you up is you're trying to process it like it's your own. You can't, because it's not yours. And you have to own what is yours and let go of what's not yours. But being aware of what's not you gives you all the information. You just don't have to live it. The next part of it, after you do this work to develop an energetic relationship with your body, is learning how to project an astral form to do all your work. Because you lose it, no problem. Because my memory, I can rebuild that. I'm not losing me. I am not going to put myself out there as a tasty feed. First sets of astral projection, yeah, I end up popping into some small group of sorcerers circle, and they were trying to, use me as a servitor because they had no idea what I was. It's just convenient in the area. I had to disabuse them of that. So but owning who you are and expanding who you are so that you can have all your analytical tools and it grows with you, that's That's what I want. I mean, anybody can follow a system. It works great. Great. But are you aware of everything about it? What's it doing to you? What's your attachments? What's the consequences? Who are you going to be hooked up with for the next set of lifetimes? That's okay if that's a choice. You know, I'm all good with that. But if I'm teaching somebody, I want them to know up front, not get stuck like I was for 32 years. And I'm thankful I was released. Oh, I'm done preaching now. It's a good thing I didn't do it with a, church homiletic manner. I would embarrass myself.
That would have been awesome. I definitely wouldn't have edited that out.
Well, I did that. I was in my 20s and I was dressed in a Viking outfit. I was at this college bar and I was talking about all sorts of stuff. And this guy came up to me and says, "What do you believe in?" I says, "I don't believe in anything. I choose to know." Direct experience. And I'm dead serious about that. He says, "But man, you got to believe in something." I said, "Yeah, I do. I believe in life. Without it, got nothing. I believe in love, the big word. In other words, having an honest relationship with everything." And then he says, "Well, what's your religion?" And then I says, "I don't have a religion. I do not rely on anybody's perspectives on somebody's perspectives who never understood of what they've ever experienced, and they want you to believe in a pattern of things that they have no recollection." No, and I said, "Oh God, I think I'm in church."
Yeah.
So yeah,
You've got that down.
That's awesome.
I stop before it affects me. Ew.
Yeah, exactly. Got a little left on my sleeve here.
Sorry. Wish, shoo.
But really, I think these are all really valid points that people don't really realize. You know, like you really go over psychic hygiene in the book and your spiritual hygiene and all of that. And people don't even realize that just going to a Reiki circle, you're picking up other people's shit. And how many practitioners do you know? And I'm picking on Reiki because I've been a Reiki master for almost 20 years now, and I've seen it over and over and over again. All of these Reiki masters that they're these amazing healers and they're sick as fuck themselves because they don't deal with the shit that they take from their clients, right?
Exactly. They also don't do the actual energetic work that's involved. And it's also, you're using an egregor, an initiatory egregor. And the thing is, if you haven't done the work, you as a master or anybody else using it, you get the backwash from all their nonsense, right? Yeah. It's their poisonous. I talked to Reiki masters almost like 15 years ago, and they went back to their golden hand and multi-modal dimensional methodologies. They're capable healers, but they realized the Reiki was good. I've seen Reiki people that says, "Can I do Reiki for you?" And I'm like, oh no, the vibes were totally addict. I knew the woman. Okay. We were creating this group called Heathens in the Hudson, which was like a community, and it became one of these ego drum fest circles. And she got into Reiki, and she's like, "Oh," it's like, well, she's a multiple addict. She got addicted to Reiki, and it was like a month after I said no, because they end up being vampiric. She imploded psychologically. Had to go get some serious treatment. I'll wash my hands of it. Okay. There's a point where it's like, you got to do this work. I mean, some old Reiki manuals I've watched, read, they're basically talking about the Du and Ren cycle of the microcosmic thing, and also managing your chakras and doing the cleaning and what have you. But what are you giving back to the egregor? This whole thing about when you're part of a community, you have to participate in the community and safeguard and protect the community. And that's missing. Now, one of the things I have another site called People Embracing Change. It's all about building a tribe, because tribes literally have been extinct by Romans and all Western culture, and that's the first thing Western European culture does, is obliterate tribes and their culture. Tribes can have multiple religious societies. They can have multiple clans, and they have guilds. They all work together. And they got to have a leader who serves them, and people who recognize leaders as children and keep them from turning into sociopaths, and actually make them care about every single group. You take that child and introduce them to every single group so that they have an affinity and an empathy for every single person in the tribe. And then you extend that to other tribes. People don't, it blows their mind, because everybody's afraid of leadership because they've been abused by society, religion, what have you. It's like, but they don't know what a leader is. I mean, even the people that went, oh, consensus is the only way. Every single group, they implode or explode, don't matter. There's always a leader, but it's the emotional one, the ones that can manipulate people until they get burned out, or until they burn out everybody else. The group of people, and I will not name them, that had their own gathering used to run everything by consensus until they realized they had to have their small core group and run things autocratically, or it would all fall apart. So I'm like, and there's still consensus. It's total hypocrisy. So you have stratified human behavior and division of labor for a reason. You have, that's how tribes work. But you can't control tribes. You destroy them, and then you give people small things to focus on. But that's not what my book's about. So that is part of what my ceremonial magic is supposed to be designed to focus on. Community. I got to build a seed for the future. This book, it's a seed for my future. It's like 30, 40 years from now, when I get to be about 12 years old, put this in my hands, put it in my hands so that I can get a leg up, because I don't want to have to go through 25 years of complete misery, trying to figure stuff out when everybody's trying to squish me into a box. One of my rants and one of my post afterlife goals, give me the book.
Now you just got to find some disciples to be able to stare you in the eyes and figure out who you are, like when they have to chase down a lama or a Rinpoche in Tibet.
Yeah, I like the story about the one lama who made 3 of themselves, 2 male and 1 female, just to prove that he could. And I'm working on 296. And come to find out, that's what Maitreya is supposed to be doing in a Pure Land tradition. And it's like, I don't think I'm going to be Maitreya, but I am trying to develop a similar type of presence. I've tried to build something where I can say call her in this, which actually calls her in an aspect, so that I can do magic remotely for people. Because I don't do magic remotely until I get an energetic connection, and people are going to have to do half the work and reach out to me. So I don't deal, a lot of send me energy. I'm dealing with my own foolishness. I'm sorry, I don't waste my energy like that. I'm not selfish, but I'm not going to give of me where it's generally unworthy.
Not selfish, selective.
Exactly. Right? And I found that was one of my big pieces of magic, is to choose to give where there's a worth. and I stopped having all the parasites coming at me. As soon as I changed that in my mind, the parasites went away. The other part was being so nice. I got to the point where I said, I don't care, I'll kill you. And all the troublemakers went away. So it was just little switches in my brain. It's, if I had that when I was 12 years old, it would have been golden. But
Yeah, set up your boundaries, right?
yeah. Well, it's attitudes too. It's boundaries one thing, but you gotta protect that boundary. You gotta have other people understand what that boundary means
Mhm.
and what it means to them if they don't behave properly. It's like, you can come inside. You got to be invited. You got to ask permission, or you got to come with the right intent. If you don't, sorry, not going to happen. So it's yeah, hard lessons are earned.
Absolutely. So like what basically kind of what I got from the premise of the book after reading through it was, the big thing that was going off in my head was the sign at Delphi, know thyself at the Temple of Apollo, right? And I think that's something that is missed in a lot of traditions, and especially things that are based on group practice, stuff like that. People miss the main point of knowing thyself, and that the magic is supposed to be a gateway to becoming your best self. And I think people focus so much on making external change and all of that they completely forget to look within and to make those changes, because those are the ones that will actually quantumly change everything without, right? Simple hermetic axis, right? So it was really cool to see that you kind of you peeled back the bullshit on that, and you just allowed people to see that if you work on this simple shadow work, and if you do this other stuff, and you start to learn who you are and be authentic to yourself, everything else starts to fall into place. It was really cool to see that.
Yeah, if you follow the process where you start becoming aware that your body, your mind, and emotion are just tools, you are going to start taking a dualistic view and start looking at things as a non-dualistic view of things, and realize that you are also the relationship with everything. And I could talk about Vedanta, a little bit about Vedanta tantrism, but also the Christopher Wallace wrote a translation of this Sutra of Observance, which talks about this deeply, where you are you in your life and your authentic self is an observer of the reality that's manifested. But once you've been able to become one with the ultimate consciousness, and you are able to observe all of manifestation. And the trick is breathing in and out the variations of manifestation. You can, at that level, you can shift things. I mean, the one thing that people miss in Musashi's 5 rings is that the whole Zen thing of forgetting one thing, he gets up there and boom, he doesn't explain the fact that he becomes it and becomes a manifestation of what he's doing and affects the change. So he's altering reality around him by this Zen motif, but it is a non-dualistic way, but actually becoming one, and then having the seed of what you let go of here and the desire up there, and it manifests into a whole action. I've done this in wrestling, I've done this in martial art, I've done it at work, but getting there, yeah, all this work has to be done. Yeah, but then you start having these, you will have, if my point of view is, if you do the work in this book, all these big experiences will happen. You can't escape them, because now you I'm being just as evil as some gods and demons are. Because if you look at how I wrote the book, it's designed to explain it, have you exercise it, have you analyze it, have you think it, start making the thinking and the process part of who you are. Go to the next step. Before you know it, you're thinking like a magician. You're spiritually evolving. And next thing you know, you're going to be attracting all these things that want to work with you. But you'll have a critical mind to make the choice for yourself. That's what's needed. Because people do things because it's fluffy, it's nice, it's what everybody's doing. I mean, people are following. It's bad enough when pagans and spiritual people are doing the same thing that's abhorrent and mainstream. You know, they don't need to follow the thing without critical thinking. They got to have use the tool that you have. It's a beautiful, excellent tool, but how do you use it? Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm getting too excited.
It's all good.
Yeah.
Well, that's great.
Yeah, I didn't want to write that passionately in the book because I get intense and that scares people. So it's like, but I want people to realize that the intensity is a good thing. If you can harness your intensity without it controlling you, you are generating a field that's interfacing with spirit at a larger and dynamic way, and it's focused. You know, there's a part about positive and negative emotions and how they work with energy. That is crucial. I hope everything in the book's a golden nugget, but like you asked before, it's like getting that meditation process and owning who you are and doing the hygiene and the internal alchemy so that you have the tools to become what you want to be. Yeah, that's the big part.
So now, while we've got you on here, do you have any quick, easy tricks, perhaps out of the book or just from your general knowledge of how people that are listening or watching can start to notice these kind of negative attachments that they've gotten, whether it be, you know, from other people, from maybe religious egregores, maybe, you know, from being in different occult orders or whatever? How can they find those and then dispatch them in a quick manner so that they can start, you know, evolving beyond that? If you could distill it down to a couple things.
Ooh.
Yeah, really?
Ooh. If you own who you are and you get that baseline, and you've done the trick about breathing 1 inch every inch, meditating on it, you can scan it in a second. But you got to do that work first. 1 pot belly breath. And usually the top of the holds, the bottom holds. If it's moving, you look at it. If you're breathing and the flow is wrong, you can pay attention to it. Doing I describe a modified horse stance where it's called a 5-point breathing, where you point your toes slightly in, not like this, just slightly, because when you bend your knees, your foot's going to rotate outward, and it generates this physical twist that actually roots you into the ground. I found people say, I can't ground. Well, they did this and they were able to drop stuff. Okay. And the thing is, you use your hands and you're breathing in, you're absorbing. You got to watch out when you're breathing in from the earth where you're at, because a lot of human stuff gets grounded there. But you can at least hold on to yourself, straighten yourself up, and breathe out through the bottom, and you take that knee bend, you feel it. Don't overdo it because it will you don't want to stretch out your external collateral ligaments. Yeah, and I've done that a few times. That will get rid of it. The other thing, even simpler, before you get there, I make a sieve, and this is what I did before I did all this. Is between my hands, I create a energetic form, if you will, of who I believe I am, what I know to be, and I hold it, and then I literally run the sieve. And it's like a golden white sieve, and I just kind of like strain it through my body. Got to hold on to who you are, what you think you are, but everything that's not you, just sieve it down. I found that fairly effective for, I've done that for like 15 years. But my other techniques I find more effective. But when I didn't have these techniques, when I didn't own myself, when I didn't do all this type of preliminary work, or I had to relearn it and redo it, that seemed to help. But you still have to have some semblance of yourself. The other thing is another trick, and it's also good for defense against things that want to attach to you, is have a raucous, vulgar, life-enjoying laugh. Okay, just and you ball up your fist and you do that, and it charges your body, and it pushes out your core energy to your skin, and you make it hard. Okay, and in so doing, if you feel it, you can like tear off tentacles, this stuff, burn it off, what have you, but you're pushing it out. But joy, laughter, owning who you are, that not only pushes some of that out, owns who you are, but it also sets up a charge in your skin as a primary level of protection. And if you do it well enough, I don't care if you're a short girl like this, you laugh like that, it'll scare people will scare them, because it's like, I didn't expect that. They own themselves. Oh my gosh. And then you can see them act up and play the fool and re-exercise some of their sociopathic behavior. And when you do that, you can just nail every bit of behavior and say, yeah, you're wrong, bye, out of here. And it just it puts them back on their heel, and I love that. I sociopaths. Yeah. Anyway, well, those are the quickest and dirtiest techniques I know.
That's awesome.
Nice.
So did you have any questions there, Ma? You've been a little quiet for a bit.
I've just been listening to it all, and I was looking in the book. I'm like, okay, I gotta catch up. I didn't finish it, so.
Yeah, if you guys have an idea for the next book, I'll be glad to, enjoy the idea of that. It's I'm thinking about Defense Against the Dark Arts, but I don't want to particularly compete against Amy Blackthorne. She's awesome. But it probably will end up dealing with more of my stories of things I've dealt with. But that would take for granted that people have certain levels of skill, and that's, I don't know how I want to broach that yet. Thinking about a discussion about what about the woo and all these other traditions. Oh, how do you want to work with them? And I find some academic people are probably better at that than I am. But I do want to get my own ceremonial magic system out there, so that people can build their own egregor, their own apotheosis, their own interaction with the world at an ever-evolving platform. But to use a system like mine, we'd at least be able to communicate with each other. So, but the whole idea is to make it more egalitarian instead of having one deity creating fabricating a whole structure that only feeds him. I'm like, I'm done with that. No more. I'm starting to have sympathy for the devil in a lot of ways. So, that's the conversation I'm going to have with him at some point to figure out what our relationship's going to be going forward. So, whatever name he chooses at the moment.
Absolutely. Well, it's been absolutely fantastic having you on today. If people are listening to this, definitely check out the book. It is your no bullshit guide to actually connecting to the energy, learning how to feel it, and learning how to change your life through inner alchemy. So it's a very, very good read. Definitely recommend it. And yeah, that was a very enlightening and enjoyable conversation.
Thank you.
And so can everything be found? Can people just find you on your website there? Is that where the best thing? Because
Archonstone at archonstone.com has most of the links, but not all of them. But you can find most of my links there. I need to update that. You can find me on Facebook as Archonstone, Elder Archonstone, for more of my direct book and video content. Regular Archonstone, you're going to find my leftist, political and I will forward memes about anything about dealing with sociopaths, dealing with self-love, development, healing, self-awareness from any type of spectrum, and but the Elder Archonstone is a page. I haven't written anything on WordPress in a long time. I'm trying to focus more on the video content. Seems like a lot of people are more focused on relate to things on video. So I try to do that and try to be somewhat personable. I know sometimes I get dry or too intense, but it's a work in progress.
Intense is good.
And you can, and they can email me at archonstone@archonstone.com. They got questions. Not stupid stuff, but you got questions, you got concerns, you got need an insight or something. I can give you some ideas to check through. I'm retired, so when I do have spare minutes, because I do work around the house and stuff, I try to help people out. I want people to exercise their will. My whole video log is this is your will.
Fantastic.
So there's so much knowledge. We could go on and on and on and on forever here. So this is great.
Yeah, the thing is, I try to separate my opinion from things that I know and experience, and things I think about, and things I feel about. I try to be specific about that, but people will take things out of context. So.
For sure.
Yeah.
Humans are great at that.
Yeah, we deal with that sometimes too. But yeah, it's been a great, wonderful, enjoyable interview. We'll have to definitely plan to do another one sometime. And thank you for coming on today. This has been fantastic.
Thank you for having me. I'll be glad to do these things more often.
Awesome. We like that.